So, welcome back to Daily Devotions. If you're following along with the week, if you're watching this sometime in the future and it's not the beginning of a week, kind of irrelevant to the devotion itself, but this greeting, which is now taken like 20 seconds, is all to say, Happy Monday. Welcome to the beginning of the week. You may think, we've been doing parables forever. We gotta be running out of them. We're not. Luke 14, starting at verse 7. Now he told a parable to those who were invited, when he noticed how they chose places of honor, saying to them, When you're invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in a place of honor, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both will come to you and say to you, Give your place to this person, and then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, Friend, move up higher. Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So that's our parable for today. And this is one of those parables where I just think there's an incredible practicality to it, right? And I think if we drill down and get to kind of the meat of the parable, it is how important do you assume you are? Because I don't think we generally, although Thanksgiving is coming up and maybe that's the one exception, but I don't think we generally assign different levels of honor anymore to different places. If you're sitting at one end of the table, it no longer communicates to everyone that you're somehow more important than the people sitting at the other end of the table. But there is the lesson that we can take away is how important are you assuming you are. So when you walk into a room, does the narrative revolve around you? Do you suddenly become the most important person in the room? Because the reality is, you're probably not. But if you go into a room and you assume that you're the least important person there, again, you're probably not. And the incredible practicality that I see in this parable is if you make the assumption, if you make either extreme assumption about yourself, you're probably wrong. But it's just pointing out the fact that it's much better to be elevated because you assumed wrongly that you were the lowest, the least important person in the room, than it is to be humbled and brought down because you thought you were more important than you were. So there's just this intense practicality too. If you always assume you are the least important person in the room, you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you are elevated. And this comes into relationships we have with other people. This comes into play when we talk about family and church and all these different communities we're a part of. I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again for a second. This isn't like a false humility, like, oh, I'm taking the place of lowest, even though you really think you're much more important than that. It's genuinely just thinking, I'm no more important than anyone else in this room. And it's a joy, I guess, than when you're lifted up from that and you say, no, we want to hold you up. We want to lift you up. But it's again talking about humility and having that base level of humility. So I guess the takeaway is you're probably not the most or the least important person in the room. Don't be so worried about it. Brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.